That would be fine. Yeah, because you're not on yet. You're not on yet. Yeah, because you're not on yet. So, you guys, I'm so excited about tonight. Super duper excited. It is Healing Tuesday. I'm Dr. Tori J, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. And let me say, you guys, I have been scouring the planet for a counselor and a therapist for you guys. Hey, Nydia, good to see you. She said, I feel like a stalker. She's been waiting. I love it. I love when you guys are waiting for me. I can tell you that we found someone who is exceptional. I'm going to shout out my friend Suave. I was trying to get him on, and he was like, "No, no, no, no! I know somebody. I know somebody." So I was able in the clutch to bring someone on who comes highly recommended. And I'm gonna introduce him in a moment, but I want to kind of go back over what we discussed over the last couple of weeks. I know this has been a triggering conversation, and for those who are checking in even today, and this is your first time, we're talking about fatherlessness and sexual abuse, and we're giving tips and tools on healing. And so many of us have walked through this, and we haven't fully healed. We're still dealing with this. And as we talked about those things, I shared my journeys. I shared through all the things that I've been through and what that felt like. And a lot of you chimed in about yours. And I'm so grateful that you were authentic and genuine and transparent. I know that that brought some healing. And I told you guys I was slowly peeling open this can. I was not going to fully open it until we had a therapist on board. And I'm glad that I was able to provide someone. And then last week we talked about sexual abuse and sexual assault from a biblical perspective. And it showed you that even God has a no nonsense perspective concerning this. He does not take this thing lightly, and it's a very serious matter. And that at the end of the day, God even has your back concerning this. Tonight, we're going to bring a therapist on. He's a mental health professional. He's actually a professor at Miami-Dade University and college that's here. And it's funny because I've even have a partnership with him, so that's another discussion. But he's also a certified transgender counselor. Y'all, we could have used him last month when we were talking about gender confusion and gender identity issues. So I'm grateful that he's on tonight. And he's a marriage and family counselor and therapist. So sorry, we got echoes in the house. And tonight we're going to get into some of the tips and tools. So as I bring him on tonight, I want you to ask your questions. I want you to be as authentic and genuine as you always are, because it's going to help other people who may be afraid to ask that question. May not want to step into that light, but you can step into the light and give them some understanding about their own situation. So be who you are tonight. Chime in, ask the questions, and with, as I would say in any other moment, with no further ado, I want to introduce to you guys therapist. I think that's what you want me to, the first name, the title, therapist, Matthew Volker. And he's counting down. I'm counting him in right now, you guys.
Okay, well,
There
good evening.
he is. We're trying to
I'm
get him some light, you guys. He said he looks
yeah,
like he's in black and white.
yeah,
We're
I'm not sure
working
this
on
is
it.
working. Hello, everybody.
Did you turn
Dr.
it on?
Tori, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is
It works
not,
better with it on. Just leave it
I,
on. At
great.
least they can see you.
I feel
I
like
know
I'm a
you.
creepy guy that's sitting in here, but
It's what it is. We're
well,
gonna
well,
work with it.
okay. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? A blessed Tuesday. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yes.
I hope everybody is doing well. Uh, I hope everybody is safe during this time. I know that this is um, an unprecedented time of that we're living in, and so I hope we're all, taking care of ourselves. Um, and I'm open to have any discussion that you'd like to, Dr. Tori.
So let's just start out with, I know there were some conversations, because I'm going to just jump into the conversations that happened. Oh, Nydia said, hola, happy Cinco de Mayo. Oh, no, she said Cinco de Drinko. Nydia is fun. She's one of my fun ones. So, um, yeah, she said hola. And so everyone's having a good time. But the last time we were, or one of the first time we were on this live, there was a lot of conversation about sexual abuse as a child, struggling through that. Mom didn't hear us, didn't believe us, didn't trust what we had to say. Have you experienced that in your journey as a marriage counselor, a marriage and family counselor, as well as, just someone in the mental health field? Have you experienced that, and how do you help someone navigate a parent not believing them, and then later on finding out that it really did happen?
That can be
Oh, I see you. He's changing. Hold on, you guys. He's changing here on me. Hold on.
actually, if you can give me 2 minutes.
Whoops. Uh-oh. We lost him for a second. He's trying to get better light for us, you guys. So give me 1 second. He didn't want to be the creepy guy, as he called it. Hold on. I saw him in there. He was in there. Where is he at? Let me text him, because that question was loaded. And I'm gonna let me say this as well, as he's popping back in. Um, Matthew even comes from a family where he grew up with a mother who's a sexologist. So he has a lot of information on this topic that can help us heal, as well as the question. Remember Trey, when he was on and he was asking about his fiance and how he could help her deal with some of those challenges? There he is. Woohoo! There you are. Yes, and I'm going to count you in. There you go. Okay. Yay! We got you.
All right, fantastic. Hello, everybody. I do apologize for technical difficulties.
It happens. Trust me. The fact that we're even on at this time, you're good, because my computer's old. But I was asking the question, a lot of individuals had this trouble and this issue, not necessarily with the attacker, but the parent not believing them and having to go years, decades without having that resolved. How do you help someone navigate that issue?
That can be very difficult, and a lot of parents we have found have difficulty in wanting to believe that A, something happened to their child. B, what if that person who did this is known to the family? I will start off by saying most of the people who are sexually abused, and the statistics in today is 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys.
Mm.
And the majority of it is not the person grabbing them off the street in the, as we would say, the white van that rolls up and then grabs somebody off the street. Most of the time it's somebody we know. It's a family member. It is somebody who's close to the family. And so to have a parent look at their child and say, I don't believe you, that can be very difficult for the person who was, assaulted and abused.
Mm-hmm.
And that breaks a lot of trust. And so it takes a lot to kind of regain that trust. It's one of those hard things. And one of the things I tell a lot of my clients is, first, can you forgive yourself? Because you're going to probably beat yourself up more than anybody would ever. And so can you learn to forgive yourself? And can you learn to say, I understand that I may not have been heard by my mom or my dad or family member. And am I willing to work on the trust? Because that can break relationships in a lot of the clients that I've spoken with.
Yeah. And I like something that you said. I want to go here because we talked about it a little bit when we were getting to know each other briefly earlier. That whole forgiving yourself for your body responding, forgiving yourself because although your mind said it was wrong, your body somehow gave this person permission. Explain that to us, because I think that's a place that we need to go tonight as well.
Okay. The body is a responsive organism, and I will take our skin, which is the largest organ of the body. If you run your hand across your skin, if you run something across your skin, your body's going to react, right? And so we have people who have been assaulted where they have said their body has reacted during the assault, where women's body will become aroused, or men will get an erection during this. And what has been said is people will say, my body betrayed me. It's not what I wanted. I'm saying no. Inside, I'm screaming, no, don't do this, don't do this. And my body is betraying, would be the words that they use. Well, the body is going to react to things. Body gets stimulated and it's going to react. It has reactionary things. Um, and in doing so, that can become very difficult because we're going to look at it and say, well, she got aroused, so that means she wanted it, or he got aroused, which means he liked it, which isn't always the case. Because just because your body reacts to something doesn't mean that that's what you want or that you are giving permission for.
Right. And that is the forgiveness factor, you guys. You have to forgive yourself because your body did respond. And some of us may not have even thought about that until this very moment. And now you're thinking about, like, oh my God, I have been holding myself hostage concerning this. And it wasn't just my mother, but it was also myself because my body did respond. And I love the fact that we can bring that up and we can even talk about it's okay to it's okay that you knew the person. It's okay that you missed some red flags. It's okay. Forgive yourself for all of those instances because now you know better. And when we're talking about the parent and the trust, Matthew, this is tough. Like you said, I had my own situation. I told my husband earlier today, even as I was, because I cried on the first one when I told my story, but most of it was not even about the person who violated me. It's same for the other individuals who chimed in. It's about the parent. My mother believed me, but my mother went a different route about it. But my mother, that was the moment our relationship, as close as we were, dressed alike, did everything. But that moment, because she didn't handle it the way that, you want someone to handle it for you, it broke, it severed our relationship. And we've been fighting for now 3 decades for this relationship to be repaired. How how do you go about building trust with someone who's broken this level of trust? And I know that's tough, but
It
you
it
you
that's
got
going
to
to
give
be
them a window, is what I'm thinking. You got to give them some level of window.
yes. If the person is willing to have a relationship with the person who didn't believe them, and that's where I would start is, are you willing, if and let's take a mother who doesn't believe their child. I'm going to use this example that you brought in. So the mother didn't believe their child and now has broken that trust. How does that child begin to rebuild that trust? One, the child has to, can you forgive the parent and say, I forgive you? And now understand, forgiveness isn't about the other person. Forgiveness is really about yourself carrying that weight. How
Yeah.
many of us have gone around saying, I hate this person. I'm going to hate this person for the rest of my life. I'm going to be so angry at this person, and I'm just going to carry it. And every time I think about them, I'm going to carry that anger.
Yeah.
Now, when you forgive, that doesn't mean you forget, and that doesn't mean that trust is rebuilt. These are separate issues.
Yes.
So when I've forgiven somebody, a lot of what it means is I'm not going to give you the power of me being angry at you anymore. I don't have to trust you. I don't have to associate with you. Now, as we're saying, you want to rebuild this trust with the parent, you probably need to have a real conversation with that parent and say, you hurt me. You didn't listen in a time when I needed you to listen. And I forgive you. And if we want to repair this relationship, then we both have to work. One of the things that I tell clients is the idea of this. If somebody has broken your trust and you would like them to rebuild it, but you're not willing to put in all the work because they've hurt you, I can understand that. So I would like this metaphor. It's having the door unlocked. They're allowed to come through and they're allowed to try. And if they try, I will work on the relationship with them. But a lot of the times, we're going to wait till they at least initiate something because what's our natural reaction? You hurt me. I'm not sure I want to put myself in that situation again. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be reserved.
Yeah. And and I can tell you, I had a moment as my mother and I are building our relationship and trying to navigate what this looks like, because there's other things that have happened throughout my adult life. But that apology that we all want this apology, right? That may never come. Matthew, I found myself this week walking. We live in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm walking the dog on sunrise. And my mother was like, I know I've apologized for this. My therapist is asking me, what do you want from me? And she was like, I know I've apologized. And I was like, no, you haven't. Like, I'm screaming on the sidewalk, and people are walking by like, oh, hey, good morning. And she hadn't apologized. And it was this moment where I'm screaming. Y'all here, see, y'all know I'm genuine. I'll tell you the truth. I'm screaming on the sidewalk this week, like, that's the issue. No, you haven't. No, you haven't apologized. Do we? We're not always going to get that, right? She didn't apologize then either. Um, what do we do
You
when we're not going to get the apology?
well, you may have to accept it if the person is not willing to hear you. Or here would be my question: how would you like the apology to be given to you? In what format? What could they say? In what manner? Because if I look at you and I say, "I'm sorry, I did this to you," is that enough?
Mm.
Do you need it in a specific manner, in with specific words, in a specific way of saying, "I'm sorry," for you to feel that they're apologetic enough to you? And I will take that back to part of that forgiveness. If you're still holding on, waiting for her to make amends, have you forgiven her?
Mm-mm. Honestly, no, I haven't. There are moments when you think you have, right? And then they'll trigger something. And then you'll feel that moment one again. It may not be as strong as it was before, but you
Okay.
then still feel it. And the moment she said, well, I know I've, as soon as she said that it like, and I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm here again. It almost takes you back because that's the part that I think takes some of us by surprise too. We will have a moment that'll trigger us just like that. And we thought we were past it. We thought we were over it. And it takes us right back. And then we feel guilty all over again.
So then I would ask, what are your triggers in this situation? With
Mm-hmm.
this person, can you identify what the triggers are? Can you identify what words they could use that would trigger you immediately, take you back, just like that? And if you can sit and think about that, this person will trigger me if they say ABC, if they act in this manner. If somebody, and we're talking about if somebody was abused, if somebody had sexually assaulted, are there things that you cannot have done to you today by anybody? I don't mean an attacker, your partner, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, whomever it may be. Is there anything that they cannot do? Because that is also a trigger. So I have a friend of mine, and she was sexually assaulted when she was in college, and she cannot have her fiance come up behind her and wrap his arms around her. That will
Mm.
absolutely trigger her right away. That puts her right back in it. And she's identified that and told him, I can't have you do this because if you do, I will absolutely shut down. But that also takes work and understanding your body, understanding the things that you're reactive to. So you're reactive to your mother saying, but I've apologized for this.
It's her lying. When she lies,
Okay. Have
sends
you
me
ever
off.
pointed that out? Have you ever had the conversation with her, not in the conversation, but about the conversation? So having, Mom, when you say this, do you know, it really upsets me because I don't feel that you have. And this is what would show me if you really,
Yeah.
now, what you're saying is you're putting your expectations on her.
Yeah.
She may not get that. And that's also difficult.
Yes. She doesn't. And it's so generational with us, right? I'm doing everything I can not to repeat the cycle with her and her mother. Okay, so now I've said enough where we have a comment here, and it's a good
Okay.
comment. I wish I could. Something's going on with my Be Live that I can't stick it on the screen, but that's okay. Nydia says, I've forgiven all parties involved. My biggest thing now is learning to trust myself and others. And I realize I'm always angry, even when I'm not. I know. I'm like,
There,
that's
there, there's a,
loaded.
there's a
There's
lot there. Uh,
yeah.
okay. So we have trust issues.
Mm-hmm.
We have anger issues. Those are the two big flags that I take out of this. When she says she is forgiven, have you forgiven yourself? Would be my first question. And what would it take for you to trust somebody? What would they have to do in order to earn your trust? And I'm willing to go out on a limb and probably say that it is going to take a milestone for somebody to earn your trust if you've been through this. And they probably have to climb over huge walls and get through all sorts of things to earn your trust, because those are part of our defense mechanisms.
Mm.
And then being angry all the time, just being angry for the sake of being angry, or is there any reasons that you can identify that would say, this is why I'm angry? Am I angry at the world? Am I angry at every man? Am I angry at every person in the world? What is it that is causing you this much anger that you want to carry this around? And what if I said you can choose not to be reactive to your anger?
Mm.
Could you do that? I mean, and that's not an easy thing. But if I said you can choose not to be angry, is that something you might believe is plausible? And just because I say it doesn't mean you're going to believe it.
Wow. Okay, so Nydia, those are some good moments there. Because when we're on here talking about relationships and wanting to have children, the biggest issue with most of the women on in the conversation is trust. Not only trusting the people, but themselves, because they've opened doors to things that they didn't want to open doors. So I think Nydia has some good things. I'm sure she's over there typing. So she's going to give us the answer to what you asked her in a moment. Do you see questions?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of quiet because I know this topic is intense. But and then the angry part. Okay, Nydia, reactive. Can you not react to the anger? What makes you angry is what he's asking. Like, what is it? And I would throw out what he asked me. What's the trigger words that creates this anger that you have that just doesn't show up out of nowhere? It's a thing. It's like it's a message that comes across that creates this anger. Um, how do we? There was a gentleman who came on 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about being engaged with a young woman, and she had endured sexual assault. We didn't get a whole lot of information. Do you remember some of it, Ben? But he was, as I'm talking, my husband's over here. He's my associate producer, as we call him. um, this gentleman was trying to make sure that he was doing all the things he needed to do prior to them getting married. And how could he help her heal? What could he help her do? And my husband explained to him that just being there to listen and, being a soft place when she wanted to cry or whatever that was, just being able to be there. You don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to do anything. Would that be your suggestion, or how would you help him navigate that?
That's an amazing answer that your husband gave. And yes, the idea of being present, just being there. He doesn't have the answers for her. He can do some things, and he can probably ask her enough questions to say, what can I do for you? But the reality is he can't fix it. And there's
Yes.
probably nothing he can do that is going to 100% fix the trauma that she's been through. So what can he do? He can be present and he can be consistent. Meaning, if you're down, I'm going to be here for you. And he can even say, I don't have the words to fix this. So I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to sit here with you. And sometimes just being there with somebody at that moment can be enough. Just the idea of somebody being with you, knowing that A, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through this with somebody else who cares about me, who I'm building trust with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's probably going to take years for her to trust him. And he will have to put in work, because that's when somebody's been abused, that's the reality is their partner has to put in work about it. And he has to understand that she's probably going to have triggers that he's going to A, have to learn, but B, he can't change.
Mm-hmm.
She can work on them, and she may be able to work through them. The best at this point, I would say, is learning to be present with her and
Yeah.
finding out what she considers trustworthy actions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What can I do to help build trust with you when you're down, when you're quiet, when you're going through this? And these are conversations that you have not in the moment. Not, it's like I tell people, when you have arguments, you don't set the rules for arguing in the argument. You talk about it when things are calm. So when you're going through a situation that you are triggered, you want to have the conversation when everything's calm. If you get triggered, what can I do? What would be the best thing you need? Well, I don't know. Okay. Can I just be there for you? Yes. I don't have the words to say, but can I just sit with you? Would you be okay with that? And that way you're gaining information from your partner to know, okay, this is what you'll accept. And how do I consistently say, I'm here for you? And there's a times where you just have to not say anything and just be.
Yeah. I like laying in my husband's lap at that moment. It's one of those things where there's something about laying in his lap that makes it okay. Not, I don't want his chest. And that's about being specific, right? It's something about laying right next to him in his lap, and I feel comfortable and I feel safe. And I can even fall asleep at that point. He'd tell you, I push him off the couch at that point. But
But
it's,
okay, but that's safety to you. You know your head in his lap.
yeah.
You're safe, you're calm, and it's going to be okay no matter what's going on. I'm going to assume now if you're there and you're comfortable enough to be there, you feel safe.
Yes. And that's what you're saying. We all have to find that place. You also, I'm going to get to Nydia because she's typing here, but I want you, even the conversation about engaged or being with someone who's been through sexual assault and sexual abuse. How do we're going here. We're grown people. This is not PG-13 anymore, 14, whatever it is. How does a man, especially if it's a female or male, I mean, because I don't know how women even know how to deal with this? Do men even expose it? That's a whole different thing I didn't even think about. Let me ask one question at a time, Tori, because my head is going. How do men navigate that when the woman is struggling and they're married and sexually they want them, but today she's not having a good day because she's thinking about it? I heard a lady earlier on a podcast that I happened to show up in my email, and she said she had to keep her eyes open to have sex with her husband because she had to make sure it was him. She couldn't think about anyone else. Like, there's things like that. How do you help someone who's with someone who, you know, this is their journey and now they're going to journey this thing together and they're married?
I would have them look at a few things. One, what is the basis of your marriage on and about? Is it just about sex? And I'm not saying being sexual and being intimate is not important. Is that what your entire relationship is based about? There's this idea of 8 different types of intimacy, and Dr. Tori, I can send you this, and you can share with your group. And out of those 8 types of intimacy, only one of them is sexual.
Yep.
And so when we look at these intimacies, and can you be intimate with your partner on the bed watching TV? Can you be intimate in conversation? Can you be intimate religious or spiritually with your partner? Yes, you can also be intimate sexually. And normally when we say I was intimate with my boyfriend, girlfriend, somebody else, the connotation is, well, we had sex. But that doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah.
We can have intimate conversation. We can have intimate emotional connection. And so I would say to that gentleman, to the husband, what is your relationship really about, and where's the strength of your relationship? And yes, there's going to be some days where she's going to say, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm not feeling it. And as the guy, you may say, well, that's not right. Because I hear men say, that's not right. I should be allowed to be sexual when I want to be sexual and she doesn't want to. Okay. But if you know that she's been through sexual trauma and sexual assault, how do you think she responds if you get angry when she says no?
Mm.
Because
Wow.
that in itself may also be a trigger. You get upset, and now there might be feelings of guilt that she's now feeling. I'm not giving him sex, so now he's angry at me. Does that mean he doesn't value my opinion, my wants, my desires, and or my non-wants at this time? And what I would say is having real conversations. Is the husband and wife, boyfriend, girl, are they having real conversations, not surface things? When you say this, I feel like this. When you tell me I don't want to do this, and he should also have the ability, or he should have to be able to voice, when I say this and you say no, this is how it makes me feel. That doesn't change my feelings about you. That doesn't change our relationship. But hopefully he can also express how he thinks and feels and then listen to what she's saying. Because it's relationships take two people.
Mm.
So how do they navigate that? Lots of conversations. Sometimes I would say go get professional help, but lots and lots of conversations. And can you be as non-judgmental as possible? So if she says, I don't really want to do this, can you put yourself in her shoes and say, well, if I get angry, am I causing her to relive a trauma where she said no at one time and it was forced upon her?
And see, here we go back to value, right? You said value. And I want to go back to Nydia. Okay, so we're talking about trust issues and anger. She says, I think I've forgiven myself because I know I was a little girl and I wasn't able to keep myself safe as much as I tried. I understand none of it was my fault. Being ignored infuriates me. Like I'm not even there when I know I am. I guess that goes back to my mom not listening to me when I told her it happened, and I consistently telling me maybe I imagined it. Okay, so that's the piece there, Matthew. Her mother told her when she was telling her mom it happened, no, maybe you're imagining that. And it goes back to having your voice heard and someone valuing your voice, right? So when you're talking about value, now Nydia needs to be heard in her relationships. And my husband and I can tell you that's a thing over here. We're wanting to be heard. How do you help her navigate wanting to be heard in the midst of this? Let me give the last part that she put on here. Even in my response, I realize I come across as doubtful of my answer. I've had these conversations with my mom. She's apologized many times. And finally, the last time we had the conversation, I felt a genuine apology. So we want to put that on there. But the value, wanting and needing to be heard because as a child, you were ignored. So what infuriates you is being ignored.
That sounds like it is very difficult to try and have a relationship with somebody who doesn't believe you and ignores what you say. And you are right. We all want to be listened to. And I will say this, hearing and listening are two different things. So, using the idea of being heard, I like to use the term listen to, which means I'm paying attention to you. I can hear you talking. I mean, this is what we do with a lot of children. We hear them talking. I hear my dogs barking. I hear people saying things. When I'm listening to you, meaning I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing, and I'm going to focus on you, and I'm going to focus on what you are saying, because I'm going to show you that what you're saying is valuable to me. And one of the things that every child, I believe, would want is to be listened to by their parents when they say something, to be believed and to be valued. And that can be very difficult if a parent is telling a child, I don't believe you, I think you made it up. Now, here would be my question to her mom. Why didn't she believe her, or what would be the motivation of her saying, you may have just made it up? What would that say about you if you believed that your daughter had this thing happen to her?
Mm-hmm.
We, as people, are very egocentric and we try and make things all about us. And in doing so, sometimes we won't listen to people because we are more concerned about how they may view us or how others might view us if we were to listen to something, especially like this. And oh my gosh, if I now believe that my daughter was sexually assaulted, how am I going to react to that?
Yes.
And so the idea of being mindful of myself, what are my thoughts and feelings? And back to Nydia to say, it sounds like she wants to have a relationship with her mother and that she has forgiven her, which takes lots of work. What if her mother can never get to that point? I'm not saying she can't. What if she can't? What if she can't get to the level that Nydia would like her to get to? Can you be accepting of that? Even if it might anger you.
Mm.
But not everybody can get to where we would like them to be. And that's part of the forgiveness is when I truly forgive somebody, I'm letting it go. And I have to accept that person for who they are. Flaws and all, as we all are flawed. And maybe they can't understand. And that's maybe mom's having a real difficult time accepting that this happened.
Yeah. I will say this. I'm not going to post this anywhere else right now because she probably wouldn't like me saying it, but I have to say it because I believe it goes along with the conversation. For years after it happened to me, being molested the one moment and then having sexual assault happen to me as an adult woman, I began to think, is this a pathology? Is this something that's happened to my mother? Right? Because that's, I think in cycles, I think about stuff like that. And I did ask my mother a couple of weeks ago, and she said no. And then she turns around and says, yeah, I'm going to just say no. And I'm thinking, that means it's a yes.
That may mean there's a little more there than she would like to.
Right. And I understood from that there's more to this. And maybe I wasn't wrong in thinking that maybe this happened to my mother as well, but this is not something she's comfortable with discussing. That might have been why she reacted the way that she did. And I told the young ladies on here as well when they were discussing their mothers, I said, imagine your child telling you that. That has to be a difficult thing to take in as a parent, as a mother who's a single mom. Most of us are on here are single, we were raised in single parent homes, taking that on. So we've got to give our parents a break because how would you respond if your child came to you? That's a tough thing to swallow as a parent. We don't know how we're going to respond. And it more than likely, our response is not going to be what our children want us to do. I like you. Go ahead.
I was going to say probably not initially, because
Yes.
initially it's going to probably be shock, anger, disbelief. I mean, if your child came to you and said, I've just been raped or sexually assaulted, most of us, oh my gosh, we don't. And I think it's a natural thing not to want to believe it initially. I'm not saying we won't believe it, but that initial reaction of that mind blowing, oh my gosh, I couldn't protect my child. Because I'm going to say most parents want their children to be healthy and safe. If a child comes to you, especially a child, says, this happened to me by whomever, and that person happened to be known by the family or,
Yes.
within that circle, what does that say about the parent? Because this is the parent now will begin to look and say, I didn't see the signs. I may have helped create this. Is
Mm-hmm.
this my fault? I mean, and again, we go back to our ego. Is it my fault that I allowed my son or daughter to be assaulted because I didn't see the signs, because I didn't do enough? What does that make me?
Wow. And that's, see, he said it better than I did because we definitely touched on that. Okay, so we have Catherine chiming in. Catherine says, healing doesn't come with an apology, just like forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but get bigger. We must heal for our journey. It's just something we must do. That's very true. I do you have anything you want to add to that? I think she said a lot, but yeah.
Sure. You may not always get an apology, even if you really, really, really want it from mom or dad or somebody to come up and say, I'm so sorry. What happens if they don't? You still have to live your journey. You still have to walk your life. And as much as it might be nice, can you forgive them for not giving you the apology? some people can't. I mean, they just may not know how to appropriately. They may not be able to get to that emotional level where they can. I'll go back to what if your mom or dad was sexually assaulted and they've never processed it and
Yes.
they don't know how to apologize because they may not have accepted that this happened to them and they've forgiven themselves for it. And so, an apology, a genuine apology, most of us like to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I did this." But that genuine apology sometimes is tough to get. And I would ask, what would happen if you never got it? Does that stop you in your journey of healing?
That's good because I want to pause on that moment. Maybe our parents went through this and they didn't process their own molestation, sexual assault, or sexual trauma. We don't know the answer to that. Sometimes our parents don't tell us the things that as we get older, I'm like, Mom, there's some things you're going to have to tell me because I'm journeying through life and things are happening and they feel very familiar. Like it's like something might have happened to you. It's okay as adults to, especially those of you who have children, adult children, it's okay to meet your adult children where they are with this conversation as you heal. Because when you don't, they may have had that same situation and they don't know how to tell you either. I think it's a bonding moment. I think it's an opportunity for you guys to gain trust as we've been talking about here, as well as um, keep the boundaries that we've talked about, but also, you know, it's an opportunity for you to unlock the door, as Matthew talked about tonight. This is an awesome moment right here because Catherine said it took her 40 years to have this conversation. I have social worker Margot Thompson is on here. She said sometimes it comes down to making the choice to move forward with or without the apology, and that's the hard part. Margot, absolutely. How do you do that? Margot's out of Ontario. I'm going to have Margot come on next week. We're going to talk about, she works for CPS in Ontario, Canada, and she's going to talk about some of those things that she's seen and how do you help your children navigate this when you're the parent. So
I
go
would
ahead.
absolutely, I would absolutely agree with Margot that sometimes you're not going to get that. And do you let that stop you from living your life? If you really would like me to be blunt, sometimes we have to cut people out of our lives for a while that are not healthy for us. And that may include family.
Yes.
You know, that may include mom or dad for a while I'm healing because you're not helping me with my journey. And that doesn't mean you love them any less, but sometimes you do have to walk your journey. Nobody gets to walk your path for you. You
Amen.
have to walk your own path. Now, there are many of us who can walk the path with you, and we can walk beside you, and we can be a helping hand, but we can't walk your life. We can't live your life for you. And I think there are people who have this idea of, as a therapist, I'm going to fix you, which is not really because I can't. I can help guide you. I can help ask the questions. I can help go over different ideas and thoughts and emotions that you're dealing with. But at the end of the day, what I want is I want all my clients to live their best, healthy, and happy lives. And part of our life is getting through those struggles. And how do we become stronger, happier, and healthier living our lives with the things that we have lived with?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go to something back to the conversation about, I think it's women 1 in 4 and men 1 in 5. Is that the number?
It's statistics now are 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 boys, or 1 in 3 girls, one in
Three
five
and one
boys.
in five boys. Okay. How do men process this? It's a different conversation, and I know they do it
Oh.
differently. That's why I'm going to go. I'm stepping in there, Matthew, just quickly. I
Okay.
remember hearing a gentleman, and I posted this video. There was a Red Table Talk with the rapper Common,
Hmm.
and he was talking about growing up fatherless, and he just recently wrote this book, and it talks about his sexual assault that he didn't even remember, Matthew, until the moment he had the session with the therapist. As soon as it happened to him, he forgot it. And so his life, he was having cycles of trauma in his relationships. And someone on the set of one of his movies was like, I think you need to go see so and so. And the moment he did, one of the first sessions, he remembers this thing happening to him. How do we help men navigate maybe something they don't remember or this thing that they do remember? How do you help men? Because it's different than us. We're going to talk.
Yes, and part of this is how we raise boys and girls. And so the first question I ask a lot of my students is, what's the first rule we teach little boys? First thing we teach a little boy.
Don't cry, I think.
Don't cry, which means what? So when I have these emotions and I have these feelings, because every man feels things, but I've been taught since a little boy, I'm going to stuff it,
Bottle
right?
it
I'm
up.
not allowed to cry. I bottle it up. I'm going to put it away. I don't want to deal with it. So now when something happens to me, little boy falls down. What do we tell little boy? Get up, wipe yourself off,
Yep,
suck it
suck it
up,
up.
rub some dirt on it, get over it. Well, that's how I process my life. I'm the little boy with this message. And my parents, who just want me to be a tough boy, because that's what boys are supposed to be, tough.
And that's what Margot said. Be tough. Yeah.
Right. But what are little girls allowed to do? Little girls typically, I'm using typical generalizations here. So little girl goes to mom and shares. And here's how I know this is a consistent thing. Go back to whatever male father figure is in your life, male person of whatever aspect, and ask that person this question. How are you feeling today? Because a lot of response from men are going to be, I'm fine. What do you want? No, I want to know how you're feeling. How are you dealing with stuff? I'm fine. I told you I'm fine. You want to have these conversations, go talk to whomever. And usually it's because that's what the typical male does. Because if I tell you how I feel, now I have to look in here. Oh man, now I got to deal with my own feelings. I don't want to do that. I've been doing this for all these years. I don't want to let that out. And so I could see why boys who are sexually assaulted put it away. Because there's also now this stigma, right? Oh, you were sexually assaulted, which means you're not strong enough.
You're weak. Yeah.
Right, right. Have you ever noticed that in men, what men do is they like to use derogatory terms, and all the derogatory terms are female words, right? Men call other men female body parts to degrade them.
Wow. True.
Because a guy is supposed to be this tough. And to help them work through sexual assault is to have the guy be able to look and honestly say, this is what I'm feeling. Which means I'm asking the man to be vulnerable. And that takes a lot of trust. A lot of men don't want to be vulnerable because what does that say about him in society? What does that say about him as a person? Most men attach their ego to this facade. I have to be tough. I can't cry. I can't be weak because what would the world think about me? When men hurt, men have feelings, men get assaulted, boys get assaulted. How do they deal with it? For the most part, they put it away.
They put it away, but it still shows up. And it
It
shows
always
up
does.
in relationships. It
Always
shows
does.
up in their work. It shows up everywhere.
It
And
shows up in relationships. You really
yes,
want to see, look at the relationship. If you look at the relationship from the guy's point of view and you find a guy who's just having these relationships that aren't working, I would say the lowest common denominator is the guy. What are you not doing? What's going on? And he may not even realize what he's doing in the relationship that is tearing the relationship apart. But a lot of people live with trauma.
yes,
And how do we process that trauma? And having somebody that you can trust. And normally what we'd say is you find a professional that you build a relationship and you trust that you can begin to process these things through.
yeah,
And so, you have this amazing group of, and I can't see who's in this group. So, but
yeah.
I'm assuming
I
this
can't
is
either. I can't either. I see the numbers. I think it's been
right.
going 15 and
But,
20. I think we're down to
but,
6 because we're coming to the wire.
But the majority of your group are women, is that correct?
It, yes and no. Tonight, yes, from
Okay.
what I can see. And some of them have their husbands on with them or their fiancés too. They've gotten
Oh,
them in.
that's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
What
it
we
is.
find is when men are in men's groups and they feel that they can be vulnerable with each other, they're willing to share. But they
Yes.
have to be willing to know that they can trust. And we find this with soldiers. We find this with a lot of soldiers that come back, or the men who go to the VA and they're in men's groups. And there's just this cathartic thing. And women do this too. When women are in women's groups, they're allowed to express things because they understand, okay, she gets me. She understands where I'm coming from when I say this. He understands where I'm coming from when I'm saying it is difficult for me to share this.
Yeah.
I got you. I understand.
Yeah, and Catherine just chimed in. She said, "Yes, David is here. They're together." That's the thing that's happened. Maybe a guy found us on Healing Tuesday, and he's brought his wife in, or the wife or the girlfriend, and they brought the boyfriend in. It's like a couples thing. I'm just trying to slide my husband in here at some point, Matthew. He
Well,
does chime in from the side, though.
but see, that's an amazing thing that couples are willing to share something like this and be vulnerable. And then
Yeah,
hopefully, when they leave this, they go and they have a conversation and are willing to say,
yeah.
okay, what did you think about this? What are your thoughts? And have real dialogue. I don't know if we do that a lot anymore, where we really share our intimate thoughts and feelings and be with somebody who we feel isn't going to judge me for my beliefs and my thoughts and what I'm feeling about what we just watched.
And you're saying judgment now, and you even said it earlier. Being as non-judgmental as possible when someone is expressing their feelings to you. And that is what men need. They need that soft place to land. I have been that for my husband before. I know we've had challenges with it, in recent times. You have to ask your spouse or your significant other, am I the safe place for you? And if not, why? What can I do to build myself up to that place? Because we want to be able to not only have to go to a therapist or somebody who, is professional at doing this, but we also want to be able to have the conversations after we get off the live to just be able to share and the person feeling free to do that. Margot did say men are not raised to be communicators. No.
Well, but it also actually it's in our brain processing. Men and women's brains are actually slightly different, and so women actually the synapses moves a lot quicker than men do, and so they can shift, and they're actually built to have better communication than men. Men are very singularly focused. And again,
Yes.
for us to shift from this to my emotions to something else, we get kind of caught up in things, and
It's like,
you
what are we
know,
talking about now? Which topic are we on? Because we as
correct.
women will move really fast. Guilty.
Yep.
Um,
Well, but part of that is a biological setup,
yeah,
and you know, we have to work with these things. And what I would say with a lot of or all of my clients who are couples, I would hope they get to a point where they don't need me, where they can go and actually have real dialogue and real conversation and have a safe place between themselves to say, okay, let's have a conversation and be non-judgmental. And can I say this? And you listen to what I'm saying.
right.
And a lot of the times, what I'll say is that listening part is some of the hardest things because we have this little thing going on back here as somebody else is talking. We're always trying, okay, I'm going to say this. What are they saying? I'm going to rebuttal this. Instead of, I'm just going to listen to you and let you share what you're thinking and feeling and just be here with you. And that's very difficult.
Yes.
That's
You
something
know,
we have to practice.
and even like bringing back what Nydia was talking about of being heard and being listened, as you said, listened to. We have had these experiences not with just sexual abuse, but growing up without our fathers. A lot of times we weren't listened to. A lot of times we miss that. And so now we push that off on our spouse, trying to make up for this moment in our childhood that is just not, you can't make it up. You just can't make up for that time. I'm going to leave that there. But we talked about something when we were getting prepared because we're going to wrap this up. We
Okay.
were talking about building the team around you, this team to help you in life. What are some of the people professional people that you would suggest individuals who have trauma should build around their lives in order to be successful?
Well, I would say this. I would probably have a therapist or a counselor, but that's just part. I would probably have a life coach of some semblance. As a woman, I would probably have a gynecologist. I would have doctors. I would build a team of all the people I need to function in my life. And they don't always have to be professionals. And again, I'll go back to who are the people I can truly trust? How many best friends, BFFs do we have? Can I trust that person? So when I'm talking with all these professionals, I still need that sounding board of somebody who I know is going to listen to me and is going to call me on my, excuse my language, call me on my shit, call me on my stuff, is going to be honest with me and say, listen, you can BS all those people, but you can't BS me. That's part of our team. So who do I have around me, both professional and those people within my circle, the circle of trust? How many of us trust somebody? How many really good friends do you trust?
Yeah.
Most of the times, you can typically count them on one hand. Because if you're trusting more than that, I'm going to say, do you really, really trust them? Would you trust them with all your deep, dark secrets? And probably not. One, maybe two people. And then you have your professionals who, by the very nature of our professional, keeps that confidence. So medical doctors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, we all have to keep that confidentiality. So these are people you can go to and say, this is what I'm doing. So as a therapist, what I normally say is, I like you to have a medical doctor. Who's your medical doctor? Do you have a psychiatrist? I'm not saying you have to get on medication. If that need be, do you have somebody? Do you have a gynecologist? Do you have a urologist? Do you have something, if something's going wrong with your body physically, who would we go to? But I also like to rule things out as a therapist. So if something's going on in your body, let's say up here, I want to rule out everything else. So let's get blood work done. Because if you have things that are going on in your body, let's eliminate some of those so that at the end of the day, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Let's get as many facts, and then whatever's left over, we can tackle.
That's a good message. And I like the fact that you brought it back because I was thinking it as you were saying it. I was like, that's why he's saying that. You're saying that because trauma does create health issues and concerns and disparities and all of these things that we're talking about surrounding COVID. Like, we're having more conversations about health disparities. And yes, it's about one particular group, it's African Americans, but you're hearing that term all the time on TV now. That's just
Well,
not for African Americans. That's for us who've endured trauma. We
well,
go ahead.
trauma creates anxiety and stress,
Yeah.
right? If you live with trauma, you're going to deal with anxiety and stress. That's going to come out, and it's not just going to be in a mental capacity, like a mental disability. Stress causes all sorts of ailments in the body. Anxiety causes us to make all sorts of decisions or reactions in our body. And so we may have physical reactions to the stress and anxiety that we go, oh, my knee hurts, or this, or I can't breathe, or I now have a heart murmur that I've never had, but I've been stressed for the last 20 years because I've never processed something. And so my body is breaking down because of the stress levels that I keep in my body. So I need people around me, professionals, who can help deal with these things until I can get to the point where I can remove. If we could remove the stress and anxiety of people, if everybody who lived through trauma and sexual assaults could remove the anxiety and the stress that they live with, they could probably process things a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Matthew, you are a blessing. I even see on here, what a wonderful night. Thank you.
You're
That's
very
what Kat
welcome.
said. Thank you so much, is what she's even saying. I want to wrap this up and I want to tell you guys, as Matthew and I are logging off, I want to tell you, Matthew gave amazing insight, tips, and tools for your healing to walk out this journey. But we ended it, I think, with your solution. And that's take a hard look at yourself. And as you take this hard look at yourself, now you need to build the team around you that's going to help you win, that's going to help you succeed. And once you do that, you're off to the races. And so I thank you guys so much for joining us for Healing Tuesday. We don't get special guests that often, so I'm glad that we were able to get them on And next week we're going to have Margot. I'll talk to her later, but you guys have an amazing night. I will see you next Tuesday as we finish out the discussion on fatherlessness and sexual abuse. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.